Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Essential Review, the show where we journey through the panel, pages, and passion and bring comic books to life. I'm your host, Coach. I am the founder of Essential Estates Entertainment, LLC, also the founder of Essential Comics, the largest comic book publisher in the state of North Carolina, where we proudly produce 13 original titles and are steadfast supporters of the City of Oaks comic book Odyssey. Tonight, we will dive deep into the art and storytelling and inspiration of one of the industry's most respected creators, Jamal Igle. This is Jamal. How you
Hi,
doing, Jamal?
I'm good, Coach. How are you?
I'm doing good, doing good. You've seen his incredible work on such titles as Supergirl, Molly Danger, The Wrong Earth, and countless other titles for both Marvel and DC, and also Image, as he's redefined the superhero landscape. Tonight, we'll explore his creative journey, some of the impacts that his reputations have made in comics, and his thoughts about coming to Raleigh on February 20th through the 22nd, 2026, as he attends the COCO. So let's go ahead and dive right in. And Jamal, starting from the beginning, for our listeners who may be new to your work,
Mhm.
could you kind of share a bit about your journey into comic books?
How far back do you want to go? Because I grew up in a family situation where comics always seemed to be around. So, my dad was into comics and cartoons. My Uncle Carl was into comics and cartoons. And I'm a 70s kid, so, I grew up not just with like reruns of The Adventures of Superman and Batman 66 on Channel 11 here in New York, but, we had, Shazam on CBS and Shazam and Isis and Super Friends and like even like the weirdo stuff like Electro Woman and Dyna
Oh
Girl and
yeah, I remember
Tarzan and the
those.
Super Seven and all of that stuff is then even in prime time, the $6 million Man, the Incredible
Oh, definitely.
Hulk,
Yeah,
the Greatest American Hero,
yeah.
so I'm one of those kids who when my grandfather took me to see Christopher Reeve in Superman,
Right, right,
like there's an entire generation of creators who were weaned on that movie,
right.
basically.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
and I really do fall into that exact cultural zeitgeist
Okay.
of
Very cool.
and like from that moment, from the time that I was 5, my grandfather and the rest of my family just sort of encouraged me
Right,
to explore, you know, comics fandom. I didn't
right,
really know
right,
what comics fandom meant. I just like superheroes
right. Yeah, yeah.
and Superman in particular. So flash forward, you know, junior high school, high school. I'm from New York City. There's a lot of specialized high schools. I find out that the High School of Art and Design in Manhattan has a comic book program.
Oh, very cool. Very
So I
cool.
audition, I put together a portfolio, I get into art and design.
Oh, wow.
While I'm at art and design, I get an internship at DC Comics.
Very nice. Very
So I was
nice.
a high school senior and I did a 6-month internship at DC Comics. So that was like my first real foray into the business.
Right, right.
But, I had met a few creators before then. Joe Jusko went to my high school.
Okay.
Jimmy Palmiotti went to my high school. Aldrin Awe was a senior when I was a freshman. Buzz was a senior when I was a
Right.
freshman. And then, we would have people come in. Dan Haskett, who was one of the the designers on the Little Mermaid over at Disney.
Uh-huh.
Like he came in once, like completely blew us away with a sketchbook, and so it's just that that overall experience of being in an art high school, being one, especially with the reputation of having a lot of people, you know, especially New York-based people like Mike Carlin and Dennis Cowan and the
Right. Right.
aforementioned Jimmy Palmiotti and Joe Jusko and Joe Madureira, myself, like
Yeah.
we all came out of art and design.
Very nice. Very nice.
So, so yeah, so that was like that was just sort of like the thing
You're right.
for
Right.
me,
Yeah.
you know? Did the Marvel tour, did the DC internship, went to school of visual arts. Eventually, uh, around 1993, after I left SBA, moved to Canada for a bit, came back, and I was working at a comic shop. I was working at Jim Hanley's Universe, and I was bouncing at a bar called The Spiral on weekends.
Okay.
Because I'm a big boy. I don't know, some people know I'm a big boy.
Right. Right.
Um, so around 1993, after I got back to New York and I kind of got my sea legs under me, I decided, you know what, this is going to be the time. I'm going to take the time to actually like figure out how to make this comic book thing work,
Right. Right. Right.
you know? And so I put together a portfolio, and there was a comic book convention at the Jacob Javits Center. This is long before New York Comic Con.
Right. Right.
Uh, it was a show called Comic Fest. It was a one-time show that happened at the Jacob Javits Convention Center. And I went to this show with my portfolio in hand, and Milestone
Oh wow.
hadn't even like released the first issue of Static,
Right. Right.
but they had a booth. And I had seen an article for Static in Comic Shop News. So I quickly put together a
Okay.
three-page Static sample. And so I see that Milestone's got a booth at the
Right.
convention. So I go over to the Milestone booth, and there's this guy who has his back turned to me. And I say, "Excuse me, is there anybody looking at portfolios?" And he turns around, he stands up, and he towers over me. Like, I'm 5'10". Like he
Okay.
made me feel it was Dwayne McDuffie.
Oh wow.
And
Wow.
yeah, and he's like, "Yeah, no, I'll take a look." I didn't know who Dwayne was at the
Right.
time.
Right.
So he's looking through the portfolio and he sees the static pages. He's like, "Where did you see this?" It's like, "Well, I saw the article in Comic Shop News." He's like, "And you figured out he had magnetic powers from an article in Comic Shop News?" I was like, "Yeah, it just made sense to me."
Right. Right.
So he gave me his card.
Oh, that was it.
He gave me his
That was
card,
it.
and then I took my portfolio over to a couple of other companies. And one of the companies that I took my portfolio was a publisher called Majestic Entertainment,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they offered me a job like 3 days later. I like did like a
Okay.
two-page sample for them
Right.
for a book called Majestic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And no, it wasn't called Majestic, it was called Legacy.
Okay. Okay.
And
Okay.
but I didn't get Legacy, but they put me on a book called Flashpoint.
Flashpoint.
And so
Okay.
that was my first work in the industry that I was
Right.
doing, but
Right.
almost nothing of that saw a print because the company was a mess. They filed Chapter 11, they
Oh
embezzled all the
no.
money, they ended up
Yeah.
owing me a couple of $1,000s. But what ended up happening from that was I took the pages that I did for Flashpoint and
Hmm.
I sent them out to a bunch of different editors. And one of the editors that I sent them to was Kevin Dooley, who was the editor on Green Lantern.
Right.
and
Right.
he
Right.
offered me 8 pages in Green Lantern number 52,
Very cool.
which was like right after the debut of Kyle Rayner. So
Right. Right.
that
Right.
ended up being my first published work. And then I ended up like after I did those, I'm in Manhattan and I'm walking past, I got my portfolio to me and I was going to meet with an artist rep and I go into this diner and I see Dennis Cowan. And Dennis is like, "Oh, you got your portfolio with you. Can I take a look?" And I show him my
Uh,
portfolio. It's like, "Here," gives me his card, "Come up to the office." So that's how I ended up
wow.
doing an issue of Cobalt for Milestone.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's the long
Well,
origin.
no,
That's
no. I mean, it sounds like you basically were bred into the industry
it
from an
feels
early
like that.
age. Yeah.
I am a beast. I am a child of the beast that made me, as the saying goes. Yeah.
Well, a lot of our listeners and viewers may not know that you've worked for not only, like as I said earlier, DC, but also Marvel
Hmm.
and also Image, and that your brand grew with every step of the way. What th with those experiences that
Hmm.
you have, um, how were you able to shape the creative voice that allowed you to kind of step away and step outside of the big boys? Because a lot of people don't know that you're actually created and you're a publisher as well, right? You have
Well, not a publisher. I
your
have
own story.
well, I have a creative agency.
Okay, okay, yeah,
So I don't have the patience to be an actual publisher.
okay,
You know what? I've done everything else at this point.
right, right,
But how, to be honest, a lot of it was trial and error.
okay,
And
okay,
a lot of it was making the conscious decision to push myself
right,
again.
right, right,
Because outside of like the comic work, like the comic work is one thing, but outside of the comic work, I've also worked in book publishing,
okay.
doing marketing. I worked in advertising. I was a junior art director in an advertising agency
Oh wow,
very early in my career. I've
okay,
worked in comics editorial. I've worked as the marketing director for a comic book company. You know, I've done copywriting. I've,
right,
worked on pitches for television shows. I've designed advertising for direct to consumer
oh wow,
advertising. So
wow,
part of it is being able to open yourself up to different experiences
right,
and being willing to step outside of your comfort zone to be, even if it's like a small part of a different industry.
right, right,
I've always felt like if those opportunities present themselves, then it's good to pursue to see how far you can take it.
right, right.
And if it doesn't work out, it's a life lesson.
Right. It's still growth.
Well,
And
yeah, no, it's
that's the
absolutely,
biggest thing. Yeah, that
absolutely.
is.
I mean, that's how
Uh
I ended up in Los Angeles working at Sony Animation.
right, right. I mean,
Basically.
and you never would have made it that far without those steps. So
Yes.
I mean, that is and that's something that we want, that energy. We want that insight when attendees come to the
Mhm.
COCO. So they'll be able to ask, how do we get, they may not get to where you are,
Right.
but they can take a little nibble of your experience and hopefully that will inspire them to do other things.
Well,
So
one
I
of
mean, yeah.
Well, no, I know what you mean. I mean, right now, you know, my side hustle is I'm a professor at the School of Visual Arts.
Oh wow.
So I teach a class on Wednesdays. It's a sophomore principles of cartooning and
Very
principles
cool.
of comics
Very
class.
cool.
And
Okay.
one of the things that I always try to reiterate to my students is that their goal isn't to compete with each other. Their goal is to compete with me.
Right. Right. Right.
And in order for them to compete with me, they have to make themselves bulletproof
Oh, wow.
artistically
Very
and
nice.
editorially.
Yeah.
The idea being that they have to make themselves indispensable in the eyes of editors and art directors.
Outstanding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
that so that these people don't want to work with them, they
Right.
have to work with them.
Right. Right. Now that is a very cool approach and a very cool idea. So when we are talking about the many incredible titles that
Hmm.
you've worked on, and we're starting with Firestorm,
Yeah, it's
excuse me, let me
Firestorm.
get it
Yeah,
out right, and to Supergirl,
right.
to Molly Danger,
Hmm.
which project challenged you the most?
Ooh, that's oh wow. I don't like that question. No, here's the thing.
Okay,
And the way that I think creatively is that I have to be in love with whatever it is that I'm working on.
right,
I have to dedicate myself fully to whatever that project is. And I have to immerse myself fully in the role of bringing that project to life.
right,
Every project has its different challenges. So let's go through the challenges. So working on something like Supergirl or Firestorm, you're adding to the legacy of a long-standing character, and you're
right,
trying to put your individual stamp on it. I was very lucky with Firestorm because I came in with issue 8 and I sort of had like a nice launch pad where we were coming in and we were, bringing back Ronnie Raymond and kind of trying to redefine what the Firestorm Matrix was and what it was going to be
okay,
and
okay,
how it was going to be visually represented.
right,
So that was, working with Dan Jolly, who's very good at the character stuff and very good at the pathos.
right,
So when Stuart Moore came in as a writer, who's also a really good at the character stuff and the pathos, but also has a science background. So that made me say to him, which is the thing that I say to all of the writers that I work with, is challenge me. Make me do something that I would not even think of doing myself.
very cool.
So Stewart had me try to figure out what quarks are supposed to look like. And,
Wow,
hey, Jamal, this issue opens with Firestorm sucking energy from the Hadron Collider.
right,
Like go and do your research of the Hadron Collider.
very
Don't
cool,
go, we're doing an issue, of Infinite Crisis that takes place with like the Thanagarians and other
right,
aliens
right,
and
right,
Animal Man. Like, you know, figure all of this stuff out, make this stuff work.
right,
And with Supergirl, I had the the ability and the pleasure of sort of tag teaming with, you know, Gary Frank and Pete Woods and all the incredible people who were involved with War of the Supermen, working with, Greg Rucka and James Robinson and Sterling Gates. And, again, that was building onto the legacy, pulling from what other people were doing, trying to make sure that my own input, my own voice was still involved.
right,
Then you go to Molly Danger and The Wrong Earth, and that is me world building. That is me taking things that I love, things that I think are interesting, building a backstory for these characters, building a backstory for Molly, building a backstory for Coopersville and how Coopersville operates, and how the hierarchy for Ark and the weapons and the costumes and
Right.
everything else. With the Wrong Earth, I'm not designing one world ultimately, I'm designing three and possibly more. So, and trying to make each one visually interesting, visually distinct, not just in the storytelling itself, but in the character design, how the character, the body language of the characters, how everything is presented. So everything has its own challenge to it.
Very nice. Very nice. If there was one thing, because I must admit, I've only read one issue of Molly Danger,
Hmm.
okay? So me being a rookie of
Right.
Molly Danger, what is one thing that you would want me to take away from her story?
That it doesn't matter how famous you are, you can always find a friend.
Oh, very cool. All right. I like that. I like that. Well, hopefully, our viewers will come and to the COCO and make a friend with Jamal. Now, this interview in itself is part of our COCO initiative to give fans and the creative community a chance to meet you virtually.
Mhm.
Is there any message that you would like to give to any of the prospective attendees or any previews of what you will have at your table during the event?
Um, wow. I will have copies of some books. I will have the more than likely I will probably bring some copies of Molly Danger, the aforementioned Molly Danger, but I will also bring copies of one of my latest creations, Dudley Datson and the Forever Machine, which
Oh,
I
very
co-created with
nice.
Scott Snyder.
Okay. All
Um,
right.
and is available in trade, but I'll also have original artwork with me as well, and I'll be doing sketches and talking to people and just, having a good time.
Well, that is cool. Now, before we close out, because I know we can probably talk for another few, but what is something about you as an artist or as a person that might surprise our fans?
What is something about me as an artist or a person that might surprise fans? I don't know. I mean, I tend to be I don't know. I think I tend to be a fairly open book. I mean, I know anybody who follows me on social media already is very aware of,
Okay.
how
All right.
outspoken I can be.
All right.
Uh, what? I don't know. I I used to be an actor.
Okay.
Uh, that's one thing. I know that's not like that widely known, but a few people already know that usually surprises a lot of people.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't think there's really like I don't have any really big secrets. I speak
Okay.
French. I mean,
Okay. All right.
you
Okay.
know.
Well, no, that's a good thing. That's a good thing to know. So I know if we do happen to go to a French restaurant or something like that, I know who's
Oh, je peux
ordering, right?
commander quelque chose. Ce n'est pas un problème.
See, there you go. I want to thank you. I want to thank you, Jamal, for joining us. And sharing your insight and your experience and your passions as far as the comic industry. Definitely can't wait to host you
Oh, thank
at
you
the
for inviting me.
City of Oaks Comic Book Odyssey, and give a chance for our fans to meet you in person. For everyone listening, please be sure to follow Jamal's work and stay tuned to either the Central Comics site or, of course, the Coco site for more interviews and updates that are coming. We actually just brought in, since Jamal mentioned he was an actor at one time. We brought in a surprise actress that's going to headline, and we'll be bringing her interview up, Miss Sierra Renee, who played Hawkgirl
Oh, nice.
and the Flash TV series. So yes, that interview will be joining Jamal's. as we post and look forward. So until next time, please keep reading, keep creating, and keep believing in the power of storytelling through comic books. And as I always say, continue to dare to dream.